Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And today I'm starting this new thing where I'm watching all the movies of a specific director and then I'm ranking all the movies. So this is my first entry into that, I guess. And the first director I'm going to cover is George Lucas, which I've watched most of his movies before. I recently had to watch one of his movies for the first time so I can put the list together. Luckily, he only has 6 movies total, so pretty easy list to put together, but definitely one of the most groundbreaking or most influential directors we have today because of what he's done. And so, yeah, it's a good one to start with. So let's see what we got here with George Lucas. Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well here on a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, it's obviously very, very cold. We're getting into, it's 10 degrees or so outside. I know we're getting the negative temperatures this week, so definitely been the coldest weeks, or it's going to be the coldest week of the, I say year, of the winter, I guess, months anyways, for me. But as long as there's no snow or ice, I'll be okay. And I'm pretty happy. Yesterday, the Chiefs won, beat the Texans, and they're going to their 7th AFC championship in a row. So get to see them try again against either the Bills or Ravens. And if they can win, they can go to another Super Bowl, which would be absolutely amazing since they won the last 2. So very excited and nervous next week, see what happens. Anyway, so besides that, let's get to our list. Yeah, ranking all the George Lucas movies. Of course, he's known for Star Wars, is his big thing that, you know, really why he's so well known. It's because the Star Wars series is the biggest franchise of all time. George Lucas, sorry, excuse me. I believe he went to like UCLA or USC, like went to film school, and he was friends with other great. It's incredible that like some of the most influential directors of the 70s, like Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Brian De Palma, Francis Ford Coppola. Like they were all like friends hanging out. Which is crazy because they're all like, most of them are like Oscar winners, or at least have made significant films that everybody talks about. Yeah, so we'll start with his very first film, number 6, the 6 out of the 6, the worst film in his I don't know what you call them, movies that he's directed, is THX 1138. His very first film, which you may not have heard of. I believe this was like a student film that he made when he was, you know, in college, whatever, and wanted to be a director. And I guess it got good reviews or something like that. So he decided to make this his first movie, the short, whatever. And he got Robert Duvall to play the main character. So pretty good. I mean, very good actor. And I didn't write down when this movie came out. I maybe should write down the dates when these come out. But obviously in the 70s period. Yeah, THX 1138. It's one of those movies that nobody really talks about, of course, and you're never going to see probably on a streaming service or anything like that. And I just caught it like a week or so ago, and it is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. It is horribly boring, like one of the most boring movies to try to sit through. Even boring movies like 2001 Space Odyssey, which I think is one of the most boring movies made, even this is even more slower and more boring than that movie. Yeah, it's just a really weird movie. Seems like very low budget, of course. It's his first film. I didn't know how he got this film made. Like, I can't believe someone actually let him make this film. It is so bad. And it's supposed to be like this dystopian future where it seems like a 1984 Big Brother kind of situation, but everybody's living like underground and they all wear the same white like jumpsuit and they work at some kind of factory. And you're not supposed to really have emotions, it seems like. Like they don't want you to have emotions. And So you don't really have fun or anything. It's just a really boring society to live in, and a very boring movie because of that, because there's just nothing going on. I mean, like I said, it's just extremely slow moving movie. Not a lot happens, it feels like, through the movie. Not a lot of dialogue, it feels like. And yeah, it's just, it's hard to even talk about like how bad this movie is. It's just so bad. I mean, the editing is just horrid. Even the cinematography is just horrible. Just the overall look is just horrible. Like I said, everybody just wearing the same outfit, so there's a lot of white. It seems like everything's white, and I didn't quite understand what's going on most of the time. So I was just like so bored. I was hard to pay attention to what was going on. At some point, well, like he even has like a girl that he's like sleeping with. So I don't know if that was against the rules, but he's starting to, like, I think, rebel against the whole society thing. And at the end, he goes on a big chase scene underneath in these tunnels. He finds like a car thing, and then there's like these police that are like, I guess that part of the factory that chase him around, and he gets to a ladder and he climbs up and he gets to the outside because they're underground. So at the end, he kind of gets to the outside, and that's like the end of the movie. So maybe that's the most exciting part, is there's like a little bit of a car chase scene. Besides that, oh my gosh, it's just, I would not watch this movie if you don't have to. I only watch it just to do this ranking, and man, I really, really suffered through this movie. In fact, after he made this movie, I was kind of like, how did he ever get money to make another movie? How did anybody ever let him make another movie after this? I feel like this should have ended his career, and good thing it didn't, because he went on to make Star Wars. But like, wow, what a rough movie for your first movie to get through. And again, I think it's interesting. I've heard George Lucas talk, about, making, when he first got out and to make movies, I feel like he's more of like, he wanted to be an avant-garde, like, kind of director. He wanted to direct, I don't think he was set to direct like big blockbusters, funny enough. I think he really wanted to direct like weird little, indie movies was kind of his thing. I think he thought that was cool, like to be a cool, kind of indie filmmaker making these very weird films, and he was more interested in that, which is funny because then he makes the, biggest franchise of all time and makes millions and millions of dollars, and it's this big, company that he makes because of that. But yeah, number 6, THX 1138. All right, number 5 on the list for me is American Graffiti. Which is actually his next film that he makes after THX 1138. And American Graffiti was actually a really big film. It made a lot of money at the box office, and got nominated for Best Picture. And I forgot to look if he got nominated for Best Director. I don't remember at the moment. It's very possible. But if you ever heard American Graffiti, it's kind of about these high schoolers graduating from high school, and it's like the last day or so, and so they're all these kind of kids hanging out at night. And it's the 50s, so they have these 50s cars, so they're cruising down the road, and looking for chicks to hang out with, and all this kind of stuff, anyways, and listen to music. It's got the nice 1950s music as well, and they're kind of talking about what they're gonna do next with their life. We all have that moment after high school, like, okay, what do we do now with our lives? So I was trying to kind of capture that moment in the 50s, because I guess George Lucas was really into that time period, because that's where he grew up, I suppose, and loves the 50s aesthetic and all that anyway. So yeah, and you got some pretty big names here. I mean, Richard Dreyfuss is one of the big names. Ron Howard. Harrison Ford has a small part as well. And for me, yeah, I put it at the 5 spot, even though it was a very popular movie. And some of it I like the music and the cars and stuff like that. But overall, I thought it was a really boring movie. I was not into this movie. Yeah, it felt like there wasn't much of a plot. It was just people hanging out, and there's little things like, Harrison Ford like took someone's girlfriend and he races them at the end or something, and Richard Dreyfuss, I think, is like, sees a girl and he's trying to find her all night. He's just roaming around trying to find this one girl that he saw in another car, I think. And so yeah, just little plot lines like that, but the overall story just felt like it didn't have much of a plot to it, driving it. And yeah, I don't know, I just wasn't that interested in it. So it's here at number 5 for American Graffiti. Might be a, I don't know, controversial pick there, because again, it's a pretty popular movie, but yeah, one for me. All right, number 4, we're gonna get into Star Wars, and we got Attack of the This is Star Wars Episode 2, The Attack of the Clones, the second movie in the trilogy, the prequel trilogy they made. And of course, I have all the prequel movies here. He directed all 3 prequel movies. And this is my least favorite of the prequels. I don't know, I feel like the plot is, well, the worst part that really hurts this movie is the whole love plot between Anakin Skywalker and Padme Amidala. Is one of the worst love stories ever told. Just done very badly, and a lot of it's because of dialogue. I think George Lucas co-wrote the script as well, and he's not a good screenwriter, I don't think. And just a whole, there's a big chunk of this movie with them two hanging out in Naboo, and it just does not work. As we know, there's the very infamous, really one of the worst lines in movie history, sand, I don't like sand. It's coarse and stuff like that. It gets everywhere or something like that. And I don't know, I can't remember the rest of it, but I don't know. I just remember watching the movie theater going, wow, this is a terrible line. It's like a pickup line or whatever. He's trying to, romance Padme. And I don't know, and that whole story just didn't work so much because like 1 second, it's like, she's like, I hate you, I blah, 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 just don't look at me, blah, blah. And then 1 second, he like kisses her and she like accepts it. And I'm like, okay, I thought you didn't like him. Now you're kissing him. And then you're like, oh, we can't do this. And then at the end, it's like, I love you. And it's like, really? Like, I didn't see much. They didn't do a good job of really making me believe that they loved each other. It just happened. And a good romance story, you got to kind of build up to that moment of them falling in love. Of course, you have to start with them not loving each other. And then anyways, but I don't know. There's a way to do it that did not work in this movie. And that was maybe the worst part. Hayden Christensen, terrible acting. I mean, and again, part of that maybe is because of bad dialogue. Part of it, I think, is George Lucas is just not a very good director as far as directing actors. He's more interested in like the CGI stuff, I think, and the world building, all that stuff, and the look of the movie more than like actually getting good performances from actors, I feel like, and that's been his big problem as a director. But yeah, the acting is just absolutely horrible for him. I like the Obi-Wan storyline a little bit better, like the whole him. That was definitely more interesting and more exciting. There's more action in that sequence when he's trying to follow where Jango Fett went, and he finds out that there's a clone army that's being built by some Jedi that's not around anymore, the secret army, and all this, and him chasing Jango Fett to I forget whatever planet, and discovering Count Dooku's behind the bad guy army, whatever. All that was pretty interesting because it's like, okay, there's mystery there, there's some action. He has an action sequence with Jango Fett, so that was definitely the best part of the movie, I think. But again, switching back to the love story between Anakin and Padme, it was just horrible. And it's just, to me, the kind of the more boring movie out of the 3. I didn't think it had as good of action sequences. I would say the best action sequence I enjoyed was at the end when they're at Geonosis. I think it was called Geonosis, it was the planet. And they're like in this arena in Geonosis, and all the other Jedi, or not all of them, but a bunch of Jedis comes to help save Obi-Wan, Padme, and Anakin, who have been captured. And they have all these Jedi. It's the only time I've seen that many Jedi fighting at once. It feels like we've never really had that before in a movie. So that was really cool when all the Jedi got together and they're fighting the robots, and that scene where they're running towards the robots and they're fighting, like, that was pretty cool with Samuel L. Jackson's character. I'm forgetting the name of. But yeah, that was a cool action sequence, I think. And then talking about the last action sequence with Count Dooku fighting Obi-Wan and Anakin, I thought that could have been better. As far as a lightsaber fight scene, I don't know. It just, to me, was a little boring. It wasn't exciting. There's this whole scene where they're fighting, but they're kind of in the dark, so you can't really see what's going on. I didn't think that worked as well for me. And then you get Yoda coming in. That was the big, I remember being in the movie theater, and of course that was the big thing. Everybody was like, oh my God, Yoda is fighting. Because we never expect Yoda to pull out a lightsaber because he's this, 2-foot, creature. And all of a sudden he pulls out a lightsaber, and you're like, okay, he's going to fight now? Like, how is he going to fight? And then he's total CGI, and he's, jumping around and stuff. And I still don't think that's a very good fight scene. It's very short too. It seems like it's a minute long, maybe, or 30 seconds long. He's just jumping around and going all over, and it just doesn't work for me. In fact, I don't think Yoda should fight. I like Yoda as just being like this old wise guy that's really good. He can move things with the Force, and he's just very, wise. I like that idea more than, he can actually fight with a lightsaber. I don't think I needed that personally, but maybe that's just me. But I didn't think that worked so well for me. Of course, the big problem with all the prequel trilogy is that so much CGI, just overly CGI'd. And when I watch it, it kind of takes me out when I see all these CGI characters. I feel like, okay, this isn't real. I know these aren't real. You know, it doesn't look real. So that always hurts anyways. But yeah, Attack of Clones #4. #3, we got The Phantom Menace. Episode 1, the very first movie that prequel that George Lucas came back with. And again, George Lucas hadn't directed a movie since Star Wars. I mean, since 1977. That was like the last movie he actually directed, though he's obviously been big on producing, and ILM's a big deal. I mean, I should say, yeah, he made, you know, ILM, which is like the biggest special effects company of all time, and has done a lot with that, with sound and special effects, I believe, with THX. I think he's part of that. And just as, you know, all he does there, you know, at the Skywalker Ranch. So he's done a lot of cool stuff technologically wise, I think. It's helped, you know, the movie business in that way. And he's produced, you know, like the Indiana Jones series and the Star Wars series. So he's done a lot of good stuff as far as producing. But yeah, he hadn't directed since like 1977. And so here we are in 1999. And it's like, wow, he's kind of, after 22 years of not directing anything, all of a sudden he's going to direct a movie. And that was a big deal, of course. I remember because I saw it in the movie theater and I was a freshman in high school. And I was like 15, I think, or something. And it was like, holy cow, another Star Wars movie. Like, that was so exciting. I mean, that was one of the most coolest movie experiences I've had. You know, just it was so jam-packed. It made tons of money at the box office. One of the biggest box office movies of all time, because we're waiting for, you know, 16 years since the last Star Wars movie. In fact, yeah, I was born when the 1983 was when I was born, and that was when Return of the Jedi came out. So it wasn't since I was born that we had a Star Wars movie. So yeah, anybody that was a Star Wars fan, we were just so excited, and I loved it when I first saw it in the movie theater. I thought, oh my gosh, it's like one of the best movies I've ever seen. And a lot of it's because at the time that was what's the word, groundbreaking. I don't know if that's the right word, but the special effects were just, you know, special effects were getting really good at that point, and definitely was one of those movies that really used special effects a lot with the CGI characters and so forth, and big battle scenes with CGI characters. And yeah, so that was a big deal at the time. And yeah, I really enjoyed it at the time. And as I've gotten older, I've liked it less and less, and I have a lot of issues with the movie. Like I said, I don't think George Lucas is a particularly good actor. I mean, particularly good director when it comes to directing the actors themselves. Again, we got some bad performances. I know I'm not supposed to say this, but I mean, it's true. The kid who plays Anakin was really bad. It was a really bad performance and really bad dialogue. I mean, you do got a lot of these, you know, now that's pod racing, you know, that stuff's like, oh my God, that was a bad line. And all kinds of stuff like that throughout the movie. Yeah, so it's, again, bad dialogue, bad performance there. I mean, I do like Ewan McGregor and Liam Neeson are good as Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. And Natalie Portman, the first time I really saw her in a movie, and she did pretty good as Amidala / Padme. Yeah, and Jar Jar Binks, of course, that's the big thing. The big criticism of Jar Jar Binks is a very annoying character. And I liked him when I was a kid. Like I said, when I first saw it, I thought he was the funniest character in the movie, and I thought, oh man, Jar Jar Binks was great. And then I remember all the, you know, older people are going, oh, Jar Jar Binks was terrible. I'm like, he was? And then when I got older, I look back at it and I go, oh yeah, he was pretty bad. He's pretty annoying. He's always bumbling. He's, you know, stepping in, you know, some kind of creature's poop, and, you know, it didn't need to happen. It's just like George Lucas was trying to find any kind of physical humor out of the character every single scene, and it got kind of overdone and kind of annoying to where you're like, I don't really care about this character. And I agree, he was a pretty bad character overall. Not to say Ahmed Best did a good job as the character. I think he did a good job. It just wasn't a great character. So yeah, that's part of the problem. Again, the pod racing scene, I don't care that much about. I think it takes a big chunk of the movie. And just, I don't know, I don't really care for the whole story of Anakin as a kid. I would have been more interested if they started with Anakin as like a teenager. I think that would have been much more interesting, and have him start, you know, training at that age than him just being a little kid. And then we have to go through to the third movie before we see him go into the dark side. Like, I would like him to get the dark side by the second movie and not the third movie, and kind of deal with the after effect of him being Darth Vader. So I don't know. I didn't like the whole story idea. I didn't really like about that. Now, the good thing is Darth Maul was one of the coolest villain characters we've ever had. And the fight scene at the end with Darth Maul with the double lightsaber, of course, that was one of the coolest moments when because we didn't know that until at that moment at the very end, he ignites one end and he ignites the other, and you're like, wait, what? Like, I've never seen a double lightsaber before, and I was like, that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, a double lightsaber. I never even considered that being a thing. And him fighting both Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn at the same time, I still think it's one of the best fight scenes I've ever seen. I think that worked very, very well. And I still think that works today. I watch that. And then the one-on-one scene with him and Obi-Wan actually was really good as well. I could have gone longer. In fact, when I watch it, I go, man, I could have put a little bit longer on that fight scene. It was so good. It happens almost too quickly. Though it is stupid how he gets defeated. After I watched it, I thought, okay, that was kind of stupid. The whole idea of Obi-Wan, he jumps up in the air, catches lightsaber, or Qui-Gon's lightsaber, I think, and does like a flip, lands behind Darth Maul, and then like cuts him in half. And I'm like, okay, Darth Maul is like really good at this stuff, and you're telling me he just stood there and watched him jump over him and then turn around and just, and it's like, he's been really good with, his reactions, and he's very fast with the lightsaber, and you're telling me at that moment he just forgot to block. It's like, that's kind of stupid. But anyways, other stupid thing is the whole Padme Amidala is, she's like supposed to be 13 and she's elected queen in Naboo. I mean, two major issues there. It's such a stupid idea. One, you don't elect queens. Queens, royalty, it passes down from, from one generation to the next. You don't elect kings or queens, so that's stupid. I don't know why they decided to do that. And no one's going to elect a 13-year-old. That is the stupidest idea of all time. You're never going to I wouldn't let a 13-year-old, look after my house, maybe. No, maybe I would, but it's like, I wouldn't let a 13-year-old manage McDonald's, and let alone be queen of a planet or whatever. Yeah, it's just the stupidest idea. At the time, I didn't think about it, but now when I look back, I'm like, who came up with this stupid idea that you're going to I'm going to elect a 13-year-old to be my leader? Like, no, you couldn't, good God, no. The worst idea of all time. Yeah, so there's a lot of stupid stuff like that. Plus, I hate, and I talk about this, I know I'm talking a lot about this movie, but there's just so many problems I have. It just recons a lot of stuff from, I feel like, the first movie. For the first trilogy, the original trilogy. And I guess the big one in this one is that in the original trilogy, Obi-Wan Kenobi says his master was Yoda. But in this, we see that his master is Qui-Gon Jinn, who was never mentioned in the original trilogy. It's like, this guy was your master. He was like your mentor. He was like a father figure. And in the original trilogy, you never mention that to Luke, that, oh yeah, I had this master named Qui-Gon Jinn. It just makes no sense and stupid. And that's because Qui-Gon Jinn wasn't a thing. And then they put him in there. So it kind of ruins a lot of the story not the story, but it ruins that whole thing about him, Yoda being his master. So why did they do that? Why did they mess up the story that already happened? So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit in with the story. And I hate that, no one said, hey, Luke, George, this doesn't make sense to the story. You can't do this, but no one, everybody just said, all right, George, do whatever you want because you're a multimillionaire or whatever. And you're the director, producer, and writer and all that. Anyways, that's kind of the big problem with this one I think I have with it. And there's other ones I'll talk about. But anyways, Phantom Menace at number 3. So that leaves number 2, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. At number 2. I think it's the best of the trilogy, of the prequel trilogy. And I think the acting isn't, Anakin Skywalker, or Hayden Christensen, still not a great performance, but not as bad as Attack of the Clones. I think it's not quite as annoying. Luckily, they got rid of Jar Jar Binks. He's a very minor character, so they kind of corrected that. Hayden Christensen, again, just not a great fit for this character, I thought. I wish they could have gotten someone a little bit better in that role. But what can you do? After these two movies, like, Hayden Christensen hardly acted anymore. I felt like this just ruined his career. It was so bad. His acting was so bad. He's probably done some acting here and there, but it's nothing major anymore. Because after you see those two movies, you're like, this guy can't act. Anyway, so unfortunately for him. But I think overall, like the very first action sequence was really good. I like the X-Wing, space battles and getting into the Count Dooku ship, and then fighting Count Dooku, like all that's really good. I thought that was a really good way to, and then you get introduced to General Grievous, and I thought that was actually a pretty good start to the movie. And I should mention the musical score is really good in Phantom Menace, I have to say. And I have to say the whole story about how I'm forgetting names now. Palpatine, how Palpatine gets in power. That actually was a good story idea, I think, in Phantom Menace, anyways. But yeah, and it kind of goes into this. I think Palpatine is a great villain, and I like the reveal of him being the villain. Actually, was really good. And this is where we see, you know, yeah, and the whole transition of Anakin become Darth Vader. It makes sense. I think they do a decent job of we kind of understand why he would want to go the dark side, because he's afraid that he's going to lose his wife and child, and so he wants to go the dark side because he thinks he's been promised that he can save his family, whatever. So that kind of works overall. I should mention Attack of the Clones. That's the whole scene where he finds his dead mother and then kills all those I forget what they're called, and then I killed them like animals. Another horrible performance. But of course we had that, you know, he's mad because his mom died, and now he's afraid that his wife's gonna die and all this. So that works pretty good, I would say. Yeah, overall the fight scenes are pretty good. I mean, too great. Actually, there's one really great fight scene at the end. I do have a problem with the Palpatine fight scene when he has like 4 Jedis he's fighting. And that scene, that could have gone so much better. It was a horrible CGI moment where he does that little spin move, that twirling move, and then he kills him like with one stab, and then all of a sudden 3 of them are dead. They're like master Jedi, some of the best Jedis of all time, and he kills them like in 3 seconds. And then he gets a little bit of a fight with, again, I'm gonna forget his name, but with Samuel Jackson's character. And I don't know, I thought that could have gone much better, in my opinion. And I do hate, oh my God, I hate that Anakin kills those kids. I think that was a terrible idea, because I feel like I'm supposed to, you know, at the end of, we all know at the end of episode 6, Darth Vader redeems himself by killing Palpatine. I know I'm spoiling all these movies. I should say spoilers for all these movies. I know he kills Palpatine at Return of the Jedi, and we're supposed to go, oh good, he redeemed himself. But I'm thinking, no, he killed kids. He's never going to be redeemed. He's a terrible, like, that was such a terrible idea. I think that kind of ruins the Darth Vader character. Like, I'm okay with him killing, you know, adults, I guess, you know. And again, he's a murderer, he's a horrible person, but I don't know. Once you introduce, like, oh, he just massacres all these kids, it's like, okay, I can never be okay with Darth Vader. And at the end, Anakin has a Force ghost, like he's a good person. I'm like, no, you're not. You killed a bunch of kids. You should never be a Force ghost. You should never have, you know, you should go to hell. You should not, you know, not be in the good afterlife of the, you know, Jedis. Anyway, so I think that was such a horrible idea itself. But yeah, overall, I think it's the best action-packed movie. Again, probably the best lightsaber fight we've ever had was the Obi-Wan versus Anakin at the end. That was a really good fight scene. So that works pretty good as well. Oh, again, I hate this moment when it kind of really retcons again the original trilogy, in that, again, I'm spoiling this movie, but Padme Amidala has her twins, Luke and Leia, and then she dies immediately after for no reason, just they need her to die, I guess, to make sense of the movie, but she dies. And in Return of the Jedi, Luke is talking to Leia and asks her about her mother, and Leia's talking about, oh yeah, she was sad all the time, something like that. And then it's like, and then you get revealed that no, her mom died, and when you were just a couple seconds old, your mom died. So it's like, she's never met her mother. She doesn't know anything about her mother. And yet she tells a story about, you know, remembering her mother when she was younger. So it's like, why did you do that when you know that doesn't go along with the original story? Again, I hate that. Why George Lucas did that. It's such a terrible idea. It's like, if you're going to make, you know, prequels, sequels, they got to match up with the original story. And if it doesn't, then it's like, you're a terrible filmmaker. So yeah, so then again, I'll be honest, I can't recommend any of these movies up until my number 1. Overall, I think he's actually a pretty terrible director and really bad screenwriter for what he's done. But overall, I'm not a fan of his directing, except for the number 1 movie. It's my favorite movie of his, and that is Star Wars, Episode 1, or Episode 3, A New Hope. No, not Episode 4. Episode 4, A New Hope. I I think it was originally just called Star Wars, but we now call it A New Hope. That was by far the best movie he's done. I mean, and that's a great movie. I've always been a big fan of that movie since I was a kid. I first watched that movie. It really opened my eyes to sci-fi adventure movies. I mean, it is one of the greatest sci-fi adventure movies of all time, and really created the greatest sci-fi series of all time. Star Wars is the biggest and most popular series, whatever. So yeah, it was huge. Of course, it made tons of money. It was groundbreaking at the time. The special effects, the costumes, everything. It was just a really cool adventure story with great characters, a good pace. It was a really well-paced movie. You got the villains, you got the good guy, good conquers evil. You got all that good stuff, and I think it's a great, hero's journey for Luke Skywalker. That really works, and yeah, just overall, I would say Luke. I'm not sure Mark Hamill is that good of an actor, but everybody else does a really good job, and I think some of the best characters we've ever had, in the Star Wars series, of course, started there, including Obi-Wan Kenobi, played by Alec Guinness, who gets an Oscar nomination. The only time an actor's got an Oscar nomination in any of the Star Wars movies that's been made, and he gives a great performance as Obi-Wan. Great character, great mentor character. But I love it's just a great story of, Luke doesn't have any parents. He wants, he's bored with his life, wants to go have adventures. Turns out he's kind of like the chosen one, and he needs to go and help the rebellion. So he goes on this, adventure, and, and then he uses the Force. He kind of gets enough of the Force to help them win at the end. Yeah, it's a really well done story, I think. I think a lot of movies that copy that same story because it's such a good idea for story. So I give George Lucas a lot of credit. He came up with a really good story idea. Script is overall really good. I think it's the best script that he's done and the best direction he's ever done by far. And one of the best things is just he did a great job. And again, I feel like other fantasy sci-fi movies kind of copy this idea of how he did this whole world building. It's one of the best movies that you discover this whole, space universe, and all these different aliens. And anyways, in the whole, Empire and the Rebellion and Darth Vader is this, and the whole idea of the Jedi is such a cool idea. I mean, what a really cool idea. Coming up with this idea of these good guys, Jedis who have these kind of Force powers, and the whole idea of the Force. Yeah, just really a lot of great ideas by George Lucas, and, and all the powers that they have, and how the Sith are evil. And so it's, you get this, Darth Vader just looks evil, and one of the greatest creations ever, the whole costume, the Darth Vader costume, him breathing heavy, the James Earl voice. I mean, it's such a great character. The cape, the red lightsaber. I mean, it's such a great constructed character, and such a good villain, one of the probably greatest villain of all time, as far as just iconic look and, figure in movie history. So yeah, all that was absolutely amazing. And then you got one of the greatest, I think, characters maybe in movies, and that's Han Solo, played by Harrison Ford, who was amazing in the role, and probably my favorite character in Star Wars, to be honest, is Han Solo. He's funny, he's, dashing, he's heroic, at the same time. At the same time, he's kind of selfish, and he has some back qualities as well, but overall he's a good guy. But that was such a great character. Harrison Ford did such a good job with that character. Also, Carrie Fisher was great, I thought, as Leia. And the best part of the movie to me is like when Luke and Leia and Han get together, and Leia and Han just bantering back and forth, insulting each other. That's the great part. And there's just a lot of great adventure action scenes. They get into a situation, they have to get out of it. That's very well. And then the last action sequence is still really great. The whole battle at Yavin or whatever, about this, attacking the Death Star. It's really edited very well, to be honest, with Luke as one of the fighter pilots, and all these other fighter pilots, green leader, red leader, whatever, and how they do that scene and how it goes into like the trenches, like, oh man, really cool. Still works today as like a really cool sequence, and how he, uses the Force to, get that bomb into that small hole to destroy it, and the explosion at the end. Yeah, it's all really, really great. Great climatic ending to the movie. I mean, it's just kind of a perfectly told story, great characters, works today still. It's in my 100 favorite movies of all time. It's in that list, and it probably always will be, because it's always, to me, one of the great watching the first time was one of the great experiences where I became a huge Star Wars fan after watching this movie when I was a kid. Of course, I wasn't around when it came out. You know, it was much later, you know, when I first started. It's probably almost 8 years later, 10 years later, I saw it. But yeah, it's no surprise. New Hope is the best movie that George Lucas has directed, in my opinion. And it's funny how, like, he's only directed 6 movies, and like I said, after directing Revenge of the Sith, he hasn't directed again. He's kind of just retired. So it's interesting. He's not very unprolific as a director, yet, you know, he's directed one of the most famous movies of all time and started the most famous franchise of all time, sci-fi at least. So he's done so much for the movie business, I feel like. Not as much as a director. I think more as just an idea man and a producer and all that. Anyway, so I know I talked a lot on this because there's so much to talk about George Lucas, even with only 6 movies, especially with the prequels. I have so many problems with those. But so you're hearing all my thoughts kind of randomly coming out. But anyways, so that's my list for George Lucas. Feel free to tell me how do you rank these 6 movies? What's your favorite George Lucas movie? What's your worst favorite? All that. Anyways, am I wrong? Are the prequels better than what I'm saying they are? I don't know. Some people love them. I'm kind of more a little skeptical of them. Anyways, besides that, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for liking it. Thank you to all my subscribers for supporting the channel. I appreciate you all and hope you have a good day.